The Because Family Podcast is brought to you by Accountable to You. Accountable, the number 2, YOU.com is an accountability software that will allow you to monitor and track what's going on internet browsers on up to 10 devices for only $7 a month, or $10 a month for even more devices. You can sign up at Accountable, the number 2, YOU.com, accountable2you.com by using the promo code BecauseFamily. You get your first month free, and you'll help us on the next months after. When you start paying, we'll get 15%, and it'll help Because Family keep the internet on, keep these podcasts coming, and videos and blog posts and all of that. You can also check out becausefamily.org/partnership to find affiliate links, and you can go to becausefamily.org to learn about our internet safety workshops, or go to familytechblog.com for up-to-date recent tech news interpreted for your family to help you be safe. Let's talk about your kids and the news. Hello again, and welcome to the Because Family Podcast. I am your host, Michael Prince. I'm the director and founder of Because Family, who exists to inspire and equip parents to be the number one influence in the lives of their children. That's been our hope and prayer since the beginning of starting Because Family, and it still is to this day. And we're doing it more often than not nowadays by helping parents understand the digital culture their kids are growing up in. You know, your kids are called digital natives by psychologists. They'll never know a world without the selfie, without the emoji, without all of that. They'll also never know a world without the trending topics. Sidebar. In Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, in Snapchat, Discover page. They're learning about the news earlier and earlier than I ever did as a kid. And we have to understand the best way to present these news topics to our kids. Because the problem is that the news seems to be getting worse and worse and worse every day. There seems to be bad things happening all the time, and that seems to be all that they're reporting. Whether it's hate speech and hate crimes and riots and fighting about racial division or about religious diversity or about people's identity or people's relationships or all these people's and stuff that they're debating and fighting over, or whether it's about natural disasters like hurricanes and fires, or whether it's about man-made tragedies like the shooting in Las Vegas and things like that, or school shootings like at Texas Tech, police being killed, police killing people. The news is talking about the stuff that when I was a kid, my parents would turn the TV off if it was on a TV show because I was too young to see it. But now you can't go into a waiting room without seeing it on the news with CNN, or at a restaurant, or sometimes in your own home or in your grandparents' home or somewhere like that. And unfortunately, our kids are seeing these violent graphics sometimes and divisive images and hearing these divisive messages just going around town. I felt really spurred on to talk about this. Because family is supposed to be like a Q&A show now, and it is, but right now this question is coming from a seminar I did this last weekend in Oklahoma. I spoke at a church, and I was asked, at what age should we begin to reveal to our kids some of these difficult topics? And they were mostly talking about adult content online and things like that, but I really brought it back to anything in our society that we consider to be detrimental or dangerous to the mental health of our kids as they're younger. And I don't mean mental health necessarily as it sounds, but maybe I do, but maybe it is, that critical. But basically what we deal with is kids who they learn about this stuff, and they get fearful and they have problems. Vegas, the thing after Vegas, the shooting, I try to keep that from my kids as long as I could. And I'm going to use my kids a lot and how we do it with our kids, because that's what we know. That's our world and our testing ground, I guess you could say, for all of this information and for what I'm trying to teach. And so if it doesn't work in our family, I don't imagine it'll work in yours. That's not to say that something different won't work in your family, because you know your kids better than I know your kids. But I'm going to basically use a lot of what has worked for us, or what is working so far for us, because things will change. But with Vegas, I tried to keep it from my kids as much as I could. The shooting, it was just so horrible. I ended up seeing images from the hotel room and saw the man who committed the crime, the aftermath of what he did to himself, and kind of on accident. I was scrolling through pictures of guns and police, and then there was that image. And then the hurricanes in Florida, our kids knew about that because we donated our motorhome to an organization that was feeding people. I drove it down there. I was gone for 6 days total from going down to take it and been bringing it back, or 7 days over a few week period there. And they knew Daddy was down there doing that because there was a hurricane that made people lose their homes and flooding and all that stuff. So they knew about that. The fires that are raging as we speak in California. My wife and I talked about those. Our kids know what's going on with that, and they have an uncle who lives in California and friends who live in Northern California that they've visited before, and so they know what's going on. But there's some. Not tricks necessarily, but some advice I guess I have on introducing your kids to these issues and the things that are going on. Can't hide from it. And I think the things that we want to keep them from are the fear that comes from some of this. I remember being a kid and when the Oklahoma City bombing happened, and I remember losing sleep because when I was at school, they had it on the news on TV. They had it on the news when I would go to my grandma's house after school. The news was talking about, and they showed the images of this destroyed building, and they showed the images of people being pulled out of the rubble and firemen holding little children who had been killed or injured, and it just stayed in my mind. And I've always been the type to analyze and really process things slowly, and I take time to think them through, except for some things, but most things I take time to think them through and really analyze it, just like my oldest son. And so I had trouble sleeping. I was really stressed. I had a lot of a hard time after that. And I think the issue really for me was the feeling of never being, I'm never safe. I knew as a kid, and I still remember it just like it was yesterday, the feeling I felt when I found out that there was daycare in the bottom of that building that he had blown up. And a lot of those kids whose parents had taken them to daycare, a place that's supposed to be safe and a place that you're supposed to learn and have fun and play while your parents are working and be close to them because you're in the same building and they can come visit you during lunch and stuff. That's where they died. That's where they were killed. And so it messed with my head as a child. And then I remember I was overexposed, and not intentionally. It was hard to avoid. I was overexposed to that, and it wasn't until I really explained to my mom in my own, I think, third grader or fourth grader way what was going on and how I was feeling that we had a chance to talk about it, and she helped me feel much better and safer. But we've got to be careful that we don't instill the fear into our kids. One of the ways that the fear is more instilled is the way they talk about it in the news. If you could turn off the news channels, that's really good for your kids. The news channels, they just instill more and more fear. And I really don't think very many people are like gung-ho about the news people these days, except for maybe those who are them or work for them. But really all they do is talk about the things that make us more fearful and more scared. And so as an adult, we can hear that, we can filter it through reason and logic, but our kids don't have as much of an ability to do that yet. So we've got to be careful because they're seeing and catching more than we realize. And if you're in a waiting room and there's a TV on the screen, and especially with the sound off, and they can't hear what's being said, you may think, well, at least they can't hear it, but they're seeing the images that they're showing, and they're not even hearing an explanation of what they're seeing. And so it's all up to their little imagination to decide what those images are. And that can lead to even more fear. So we have to be careful because they can feel like they're just never safe. And everywhere they go, they're hearing about these things that are a problem. The other thing is the division. Our kids need to realize, I have to sip my coffee there as I do this. It's important, not only for my voice, but also for my energy and my excitement. Anyway, the division, the debate. God help us with the debate. It's nonstop. Nobody's changing anybody's minds. Nobody's helping anybody see things more clearly. You're just arguing with each other, and your kids are hearing it. And it's causing them to form these opinions based on just what everyone else has said. And they don't, and that's kind of where your opinion came from probably, but they're not necessarily learning how to reason and think and be logical about these issues. They're just responding. They're hearing other people respond emotionally, or they're reading, or they're hearing you talk to your spouse about how somebody else responded emotionally, and it's divisive. There's division. I've heard of division in schools, fights in schools because of like Democrat and Republican. Elementary age, grade schoolers fighting over politics. That's nonsense. They need to work on their multiplication tables. They don't need to worry about our president or our Senate or our governors and their political standing. That's complete nonsense. But because it's so inundated in the news for our kids, they're seeing it, they're hearing it, our parents are talking about it, they're posting about it on Facebook and then complaining when people comment negatively about it. And so our kids are learning these things, and they're fighting with each other because their mom and dad thinks one thing and their mom and dad thinks one thing, and both of them think their mom and dad are right because of course they do. You're their kids. And so we have this division and these fighting. You usher in more confusion for your kids because they don't know which end is up. And it's very easy. It's easy for me. I'm 34 years old, and I look at our world sometimes and it's hard to know which end is up. I get confused. Who are we helping by doing this? And who are we hurting by doing that? And how can we help them but not hurt them, but hurt those guys but not help those guys? And how can we do this without somebody else coming against what we're trying to do or whatever? And I know I'm speaking vague, but it's really about every topic that's out there in the news, you know? Should we tear down the statues? I don't know. Should we throw up the flags? I don't know. Should we do this and do that? And should we? I don't know. What I do know is that the arguing about it is helping no one, and it's causing our kids to be confused. And it's causing our kids to have division within their friendships as kids, where all they should really be worrying about is trading baseball cards or shooting hoops or playing some video games, kid-friendly video games, BecauseFamily.org. But still, they need to know what's going on and not be confused. Now, here's some of my advice. I'll do 10 minutes or so more of just kind of helping you understand my advice and how it works for us with our kids to help them avoid the fear, to avoid the debate and the division, and help them avoid the confusion that comes from these things. My advice is that they need to learn about what's going on in society from you, so that you can teach it to them and show them in a way that's right for them. Because even if they learn about it in school, they're going to learn about it most likely at a grade level that's consistent with just the common age in their grade level. Now, that's fine, and teachers have to do what they have to do. Like, they can't, it's hard for a teacher with 25 kids in a classroom to reveal information to each kid as that individual kid's personality would handle it best. That's not easy to do. That's mom and dad's job. If something horrible happens in the news and you know it's going to be discussed at school or somebody at school is going to know about it, that's our job as mom and dad to make sure our kids hear about it first from us so that they learn about it in a way that we trust is the right way for them and their age group, their capacity to understand, and their ability to discuss and learn about it. So when something like what happened in Las Vegas happens, we try to wrap teaching our kids about this in what we're doing about it. So the hurricanes, we taught our kids about what was going on with the hurricanes by me doing something to help. Our kids learned about the shooting in Vegas because I bought a bunch of raffle tickets to donate and went to a coffee shop to buy coffee where a large portion of the profits went to people trying to help people in Las Vegas. And so we wrap the education of the information or the knowledge of what's happening, we wrap it in what we're doing about it. And we're always trying to do something about something. That's just inside me anyway, and my wife, both as missionaries and as people who've seen people at their worst and been people who needed it. We try to be generous as much as we can, as often as we can. And so our kids see that and they know that. And so that's what we do. That's how we choose. Also, you got to understand your kid's age. Like, are they old enough to understand it? And can you deliver the information to them in a way that they can understand? Maybe with the shooting in Vegas, if your kids are pretty young, it's fine to say, Yeah, a man snuck into a place where there was a lot of people, and he hurt a bunch of people and a bunch of families, and it really, really was a bad thing, and he did a really horrible thing, and then he hurt himself really badly. And so we need to pray for those people, or we need to think about those people, we need to donate to help those people's families, or whatever we're doing. But not, and it's important, no matter the age, like I said, to say, here's what happened. Here's what we're doing about it. Because they need to know, and this is something that gets shared a lot on social media after a tragedy, is look for the people who are helping. And that's very, very good. No matter what you're seeing on TV, if it's scary, if it bothers you, look for the people who are helping and know that there's, no matter what's going on, there's always stories of people who've stepped up and done something. So I say take it a step further and do something yourself. Donate to an organization that's helping, or give to, or give your time. If it's somewhere in your area where you can give, go donate blood and say, yeah, I have to go donate some blood because all the people that were injured, they need more blood, and I have a type that could probably help out, so I'm going to go do that. And teach your kids about those things and how you can contribute. And so you're not confusing them. You're not causing them to have fear because of what happened. Instead, or dividing them, causing them to be distracted from doing good by the debate on whether we should be allowed to have guns or not. Like, so what? Right now, let's just help the people who need help, right? And so our kids need to know that, and that's what we're doing by wrapping it in. Hey, this is what I'm doing to help out. I recommend you turn off the news. Most of the time, the 24-hour news cycle has killed American families in a major way. It's really damaged, in my opinion, has really damaged the way the American family functions and operates. And because so many things have become so like I said, divisive and divided, and even families are divided because of what they learn from the news cycle that they see. Turn off the news. The images that they show on the news, even just images of homes on fire in California right now, can be scary to kids because they live in a house like that. And to see a house like that engulfed in flames can be scary to them. Turn it off. Encourage aunts and uncles and grandparents who they're going to go spend time with, friends at friends' homes. Say, hey, can we make sure we're not watching the coverage of that stuff right while my kids in the living room, because it really kind of freaks them out. I have trouble with some of the Christian stations. They're talking about whatever they're talking about. I won't get into it, but they keep showing images of radicals marching with weapons and armies with black flags and putting, dragging prisoners around with bags over their heads. And I'm like, this is the introduction before a guy preaches a sermon from the Bible. This is your introduction. And so I can't turn on a Christian television station without being concerned about my kids seeing something that's going to cause them to have fear because they don't really understand what they're seeing. You know what I'm saying? And that's the problem. You got to turn off the news. Be careful what's on the TV. You need to watch where you get your information. Ooh, sorry. Hit the microphone. That was bad. You need to watch where you get your information. You need to have the right information, accurate information. And if it comes from one of the top news stations, it's probably not super accurate. I don't care what news station it is, because they all have their bent and they're going to teach you, basically. They're not reporting the news. They're teaching you an opinion on the news that they want you to have. And I'm not trying to get, I guess I am getting opinionated on this, but really it's just the way it is. Most people won't disagree with me. You just prefer one opinion over the other, so you watch it anyway. But yeah, you've got to be careful where you get your information. And information, and stay away from the conspiracy theory stuff, because that kicks on immediately. That's something that bothered me really bad about the shooting in Vegas. It was like as soon as the reports started coming in about what happened, you had videos piling up talking about the conspiracy and how this means that somebody's out to get somebody, or somebody did it on purpose, or there had to have been this, there had to have been that. And it's, again, divisive, and it causes debate, and it causes problems. And our kids hear this stuff because we talk about it. We don't just post on it, and we don't just read it to ourselves quietly all the time. We talk about it with our friends or with our family, our spouses, and they hear about it, and they form opinions, or they get confused, or they get fearful, thinking everybody's out to get me. And be careful with debating yourself. Not debating yourself. That means you have a problem, multiple personality situation. Be careful yourself with debating other people because, number one, it doesn't do any good. And if you want to go to Scripture, Paul says, just avoid the meaningless debates. It doesn't help anybody. He says that in Scripture. Paul tells us to avoid debating, especially things of a spiritual nature. But I truly, honestly believe that everyone has their opinion. It is formed, and it is not changing. It's only strengthening. Even my opinion about everyone having an opinion is my solid opinion, and it's not going to change. And so I recommend that you stop trying to change people's opinions, but let your kids see you try to change people's lives. Let your kids see you try to do something helpful in the situation instead of start all of a sudden finding the people you can argue with about what's going to keep it from ever happening again. These things have happened in our society forever. These things have happened in the human race for thousands of years. Mass killings, mass murders. Sometimes they called it war. Sometimes they didn't. Mass murders of people, slavery, discrimination, hate and hate speech has happened forever in our society and in our world of the human race. And it will never stop, especially if all we do to fight it or combat it is argue about whose fault it is that it's happening. It's happening because we live in a world that is falling apart around us. We live in a world where people are inherently selfish. And then they get confused by media, or they get confused by teachings that are teaching something other than love and encouragement and uplifting each other. They get taught something other than what we're supposed to be taught and we're supposed to do. And so they go the wrong direction. They're not, instead of spreading love and spreading peace and spreading hope, they spread fear or they spread hate. And when we debate and we talk about it in the way that we do so much in our society, they win because the debate strengthens the fear. The division is exactly what they're trying to bring on our country and on us as a people and as a human race. Division and hate and fear. And they win. And especially if our kids grow up already fearful, we've lost. We've lost. We have to be careful with the news. I know this got super heavy, and I don't like to be super heavy, but I just want to encourage you as a parent to pay close attention to what you're allowing your kids to see in the news, what you're allowing your kids to experience in your conversations about what's happening in our world and our society. Find the good. Find the things that you can do that's good. Find the people who are doing good and use that story to tell your kids what's happening. Yes, there was a hurricane or an earthquake, but this organization, which for us it's nice because we can say this organization, Convoy of Hope, which we donate to a lot, or we have people who work with it that we know they've taken shiploads of food to this island to give these people food. And so we're praying for them as they do that. We've donated to them as they do that. We're trying to help that work out because yes, this horrible thing happened, but people are coming together to make it right and to do something good. Please be careful with what your kids see in the news and what they learn. And share this with your friends. Share this podcast with your friends because we're not going to change the world by arguing and debating what's going on in society. We're only going to change the world by raising up kids who can live a life of compassion, love, mercy, justice, and hope. And they can't do that if they're scared. They can't do that if they're confused. And they can't do that if they're divided. Thanks for listening to my sermon today at the Because Family Podcast. Remember, you can learn all about our ministry at BecauseFamily.org. You can read blogs about the latest tech information and tech advice at FamilyTechBlog.com. And you need accountability software. You need to be able to see what your kids are doing online. So if they do something wrong, it can be red flagged for you. You can ask them what's going on, talk to them about it. You can say, hey, I see that you accidentally found this video about these fires in California. We haven't really talked about that yet. What do you know about that? There you go. Accountability software can help that happen. Go to accountable2u.com. Use the promo code BecauseFamily or go to BecauseFamily.org/partnership and click on the banner ad or any of the banner ads at FamilyTechBlog.com, and you can support us by helping your family be more accountable with what they do online. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for Family Tech weekly coming out at familytechblog.com later on this week. And we'll see you next time on the Because Family Podcast.